What's up, bud? It's Rob. This is Apparel Success. And if you don't know who I am, I run a Canadian clothing company called K-Bud Apparel that's doing six figures in sales. So I help clothing brands like you get really good results. And what I want to talk to you about in this video here is the importance of your designs for your clothing brand. And I want to talk to you about how I think about creating designs for my own clothing brand. And I think that a lot of the tips and advice that I have for you on this topic specifically will really help you grow your clothing brand in a better way that leads to more sales and gets you more results. So here it is. Apparel Success is sponsored by my buds over at Designcrowd. And if designs are something that you need help with after watching this video about how to design for your clothing brand, then I really recommend that you give them a shot. You post a project on Designcrowd, amazing designers from all around the world will compete for your project. You choose the winner, then you get that design plus revisions. This is the best-selling design on my website, and I got the design made through Designcrowd. If you're interested, head over to designcrowd.com/apparel to learn about the special offer that I have for you where you can save up to $100 or simply use the discount code APPAREL when you post a project on Designcrowd. All right, so generally speaking, I feel that designs are overrated when it comes to the success of your clothing brand. And the reason why I believe that is because most clothing brands overlook the other aspects of their clothing brand and they undervalue things like brand messaging, their story, social proof and things like that. And they overvalue just the surface layer of their clothing brands, which is just the clothing itself and the designs on their clothing. And so, most of my videos on this channel, I talk as if designs aren't important, but at the end of the day, they really are, a big piece of the puzzle, and obviously they are really important to the health of your clothing brand. There are a lot of examples out there of clothing brands that have become successful having kind of shitty designs that are basically like whatever. They're not really all that impressive or all that good. And it's because the substance of their brand is there. They're connecting with their audience's identity in a deep way where people are wearing the clothing to support the movement more than they are about the designs themselves. And so that's an example of, clothing brands that can be successful without having really mastered their designs or have any crazy aesthetic to their designs. At the same time, would it be fully optimized to have designs for your clothing brand that are like amazing, where they're just like stunning designs? Of course, it would be the absolute best case scenario to have a brand where, you've got the substance of your clothing brand there. There's stuff, underneath the surface where you're connecting with people's identity. Their brand messaging is good. The story's good. Your website quality is good. And your designs are good. That's like a perfect clothing brand, right? Because you're basically covering all the bases, and that's when people are really going to be wowed by it. So, when I think about the designs of my clothing brand, I think I'd have to admit that most of the designs for my clothing brand have been, I've just kind of haven't given them the attention and the time that I feel that they deserve. And I'm sort of starting to realize that nowadays as I'm growing my clothing brand. And so I've really spent a lot of time thinking about the designs of my clothing brand, which designs to come out with and how to design them. And so I just kind of wanted to sort of allow you to just sort of watch my stream of consciousness here and how I'm thinking about the designs of my clothing brand, because maybe it'll help you out if you're thinking about the designs of your clothing brand. So one of the big issues with the designs of my clothing brand when I first started was that I had a simple logo and I was trying to just deal with just that logo and sell with just that logo. Okay, so it was like I had a 1 or 2 logo brand and I was just trying to put that brand out there into the world and create just like a solid brand, almost like a Nike, where Nike's got the swoosh. Mine was like the bird and just my main logo. What I realized growing my brand, and this might just be specific to my brand, is that, why people are connecting with my brand is through the Canadian humor involved. And so one way that I decided to branch out with the designs of my clothing brand is by coming out with more designs that are incorporating more of the Canadian sayings. Because my clothing brand was based on the Canadian slang K-Bud, like, all right, bud, K-Bud. And that's why people were buying K-Bud originally. To come out with more designs that all just say K-Bud, that's cool. But, for my specific clothing brand, it made a lot of sense to come out with, different sayings for my clothing brand, because that was why people were buying my clothing brand in the first place. And so that's why I came out with designs for, different sayings. I have a design for just give her, friggin' rights, way she goes, oh for sure, all these different Canadian sayings, and all of that has really cracked open my brand for me. The key thing here is that I started with the purpose of my clothing brand. How was my clothing brand really connecting with people? Why were people buying my clothing brand in the first place? From that place, that's where I decided to come out with my designs from. That's where I came out with the concepts of my designs from. And so you want to really understand, why are people buying your clothing brand? What is it that they're connecting with? And then, from that place, that's when you can start coming up with your design concepts, because each design for your clothing brand is almost like a mini brand in itself. There's people who buy, K-Bud that will also buy the Just Giver hoodie because it says Just Giver on it, because that's something that they say. And so I came up with that concept for that design based on the things that my audience is saying, based on the things that my audience, how they communicate, the words that they use and things like that. So that's basically just knowing my audience at a level where I can come out with designs that are going to hit on the different segments of my audience. So every single design that I come out with is trying to include more of my market segment and appeal to more of my market segment while fitting into the same hole of my clothing brand. The reason why I'm making a video on this topic right now is because this strategy and way of formulating designs for my own clothing brand is really working well for me right now. And it's a formula that you can apply to your own clothing brand that I think will really work well for you as well. And so, as an example, imagine the clothing brand concept of basketball. So your clothing brand is all about basketball. If that's the overarching concept of your brand, then you applying this formula could come up with designs that are appealing to the different little segments of basketball. So, one design might say slam dunk, as lame as that would be, right? This is just an example. Slam dunk, alley-oop, breaking ankles, crossovers, stuff like that. And it would all be designs based on that brand concept, because if people like that brand concept as a whole, then they're likely going to like each and every single one of those little design ideas. And it's just a really, really good formula and way of coming up with new designs for your clothing brand. And obviously, you still have to apply your own creativity to it. You still have to come up with, the ideas within your brand concept. And you still have to know your audience really well in order to do this, because, if you don't know your audience well, if you don't know what the brand concept's about, and if you yourself as the clothing brand owner aren't living that brand concept yourself and authentic to that brand concept, then you're probably not going to do a good job coming up with these designs. But this is just a great strategy for you when it comes to coming up with the ideas for your designs. What I've shared with you in this video is an underlying principle, but it doesn't have to be followed exactly as I've laid it out here. I realize that there are some brands that just want to be clean and minimalistic and literally just have their one logo on everything. I get that that's a strategy as well. But, what I'm saying with you here is that if you're trying to really, capture everybody within your niche, if you're coming out with a private label clothing brand that's going after a niche, then a really good way to do this is some form of including everybody within your segment in different designs. So, it doesn't even have to say slam dunk or say alley-oop on every single shirt. It could be your same logo on every single shirt, but, maybe there's a variation in that design where, in the background in one of them, it's somebody doing a slam dunk. In the background of another one, it's somebody crossing somebody over or breaking somebody's ankles. And each of those designs will appeal to a different person that falls within the same market, that falls within your audience. And so you're able to capture both those people, rather than just having one of them say, oh, I like that whole idea, but, that design didn't really work out for me. And when you include as many as you possibly can that fit in within your audience, so that you can basically capture everybody within your audience with different designs, so that there's a design for everyone, I think that that's a really, really good way of making sure that when somebody's shopping through your website, there's at least one piece of clothing on your website that will appeal to them and make them want to check out and buy. Now, this formula that I've shared with you does not need to be followed religiously at all. This is literally just me sharing with you what's worked for me, how I strategize coming out with new designs for my own clothing brand. And, maybe if you hadn't thought about it in the way that I shared with you in this video, it helps spark some ideas. It helps you come up with designs for your own clothing brand and get you better results. So I hope that helped. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Drop your brand down there as well. I like to check out the brands that are watching. And if you haven't already, check out my free clothing brand marketing masterclass at apparelsuccess.com/masterclass. And if you've made it to this point in the video, I want to tell you about the closed Facebook group that we have for Apparel Success. There's a link in the description. Follow that link. Join us in the group, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.